Good day everyone, and welcome to a new video in my home automation series. And this time we are looking at the new Sonoff product, which is the Sonoff Basic R3 or release 3 model, which I got ahead of its official release, as in when it becomes available online. And I'm recording this video probably about a month before it actually goes live, because I was asked so that the video goes live when the product becomes available. So I'm quite excited about it. I'm feeling like a celebrity that I'm getting, products ahead of its official release. So we are going to look at this product, see how it is different from the existing Sonoff Basics. And I know that one big feature that they are trying to sell here is that it has a DIY mode. So it should be easier to integrate this Sonoff Basic with other home automation systems without making changes to the original Sonoff firmware. So I think that would be interesting for quite a few of us, especially for those who like to use a Sonoff Basic, but they are just not comfortable changing the firmware on it. So that should be fairly easy for this one. I don't know too much about it because that is the part of the information that it hasn't released, that I think they are still working on the firmware and probably some changes, but by the time we get to that section in the video it should be clear. And by the way, if you are only interested in particular part of the video, I'm just going to put an index here so you can skip to the relevant section in this video. So first of all, let's look at the box. We get a slightly redesigned box for this one. As you can see, it's DIY Basic R3. And this is, I believe that they are going to have a model which has the RF as well. So this is the one without the RF. And then we have the Sonoff Basic, which has a different design. And I'm not really sure why they have gone for a different hardware. Maybe it was, the time to update the physical look of the device. Maybe they managed to shave off a few cents on the manufacturing by having all the text embossed into the plastic, instead of being printed on it later as a separate step. But also the box became a little bit more complicated. Well, maybe it's easier for us to fix, but it just contains more parts. And as you can see, we have the usual buttons, and we have some status LEDs. Instead of one in the previous models, now we have two. Also in the box we are getting a few more stuff. There is an FCC certification letter, there is a quality check pass, QC pass, and we also have a user manual, a QR code to the user manual, and we also have this feedback form where you can like or dislike this product. For some reason I got two of these quick installation guides. They are the same and they are in the same languages, so I'm not really sure why I got two. Maybe it was just a packaging mistake. And you can see all the details here, how you wire it up. Hasn't changed anything in that from the previous model, and you have these really condensed instructions. So you have each steps, and within each steps you have the short instructions in 5 or 6 languages. And also on the other side we are getting a few more details. So you can see the basic wiring, which again hasn't changed, a link to the apps, and how to set it up in the eWeLink application. Oh, and I almost forget, we are getting some hardware as well. It's basically these two strain reliefs for the input and the output cables, and some screws, and we are also getting a small jumper. So let's see how we can open up this model. So the top art of this cover comes off. So there are some retaining clips, and the cover is symmetrical, so it can go back both ways. And of course, if you put it the other way around, then your labels here, which one is the input and the output, you can't really see in the video, then it would be the other way around. But they have, I'm not sure if you can, so they have this Pac-Man icon here, which needs to line up with these, I don't know, this triangle or cheese icon. So this is how you snap it back on. So otherwise you remove. And when you remove, you don't see the circuit, so there is this extra piece of the casing, but you have access to the terminals on both sides. And also you have the screw mounts here, one on the opposite side to mount it. So that's quite nice. And if you want to take it apart, then you have 2 screws on the underside that you can undo. Oh, I need a different screwdriver. So with the 2 screws removed, the top part comes off, and that reveals the printed circuit board, and then you have the base. So the bottom case has these prongs here, so the PCB can only go back one way. As you can see, they have also redesigned the PCB, so the different components are in a slightly different position. And in the underside you can see, well, there is a lot of flux residue, and then you can see the power traces with some additional solder just to increase the current handling capability, and also the high voltage or the power management and the low voltage components are clearly separated by this white line, and also, you know, the clearance. And as you can see, there are some unpopulated parts on the PCB. I'm not really sure what this is for, but there is a small text here which says RF_init, so I believe that these components would only be populated on the basic RF module, and this is not it. And on the other side, you can see that the ESP chip is mounted on a separate daughter board. So for some reason they decided that to use a daughter board. Maybe there wasn't enough space to mount the ESP with the RF. So it comes on a separate board, which has the pairing button, or the button. I had to get my magnifying glass to read the markings on the chip, but this is an ASP8285, which is a version of the ASP8266 with a built-in flash memory. And also next to it you see an unpopulated IC socket, or place for a different chip, which, maybe they will use it in the future. I'm not sure what that could be. And you see the 2 status LEDs there. And besides that, we have another jumper here which says OTA_SW. So that's probably why they have provided the jumper in this bag. So hopefully they are going to tell me some information how to use that one. OTA is over-the-air update, so maybe it's something related to, I don't know, custom firmware, something. We get some test pads here, so it says 3.3 volts ground, and we also have this 4-pin header here, which is only you only see the empty holes. And if I flip the board around, there are some markings on the other side which you will not be able to see through the camera, but it says 3.3 volts, RX, TX and ground. So I'm guessing if somebody is not happy with the DIY functionality, it should be still possible to flash this in the old-fashioned way. And this is how the release 3 compares to the release 1 and the release 2, which have identical cases. So same length, well, okay, a few millimeters longer, a couple of millimeters thicker, and I'm guessing also a couple of millimeters higher, but I would say almost identical. So the wiring is straightforward. I have a piece of cable with a plug on one side, and of course once you remove the case, then you don't know which one is the input and the output side, but the input side is the one which has the varistor and some other components. On the output side there is nothing, and also here it says which one is the live and the neutral, but you also have a small L and an N markings there, if you can see that. So the cable goes in like that, and I just tighten the screws. And on the other side I just have a bulb with a piece of wire. So I plug it in like that as well, and I tighten the screws too. And you still have to cut your wires quite short here, just to make sure that the installation still is on the cables, the strain relief here on both sides. I think This one is probably a little bit long because the strain relief is only holding just that part of the insulation here. I think it's fine. But then you just put these on. In fact, as you can see, this is not good at all because the strain relief is not holding the insulation, it's just holding the wires. So you have to make it really, really short, which makes it a little bit difficult to get in. But yeah, it's a really small tight package, so you have to make sure that your wiring is done right. Maybe I should push this in a little bit. Well, I can't really because there is no space for the wires to, you know, kink to the side or to the top. But anyway, do a more diligent job than what I have done here. Everything is quite tight and fiddly. I had to use some tweezers to get these small screws in, but that's how it looks like at the end. So here you can see it better that the strain relief is actually catching on the insulation instead of just the wires like on this side. And once you have done that, you can just slap on the case. As I said, make sure that you have the Pac-Man symbol aligned with the cheese symbol there. And the assembly is now complete. We can plug it in. Now I have the device plugged in already, and as you can see, I can use the button to operate the lamp on the other end. And now you see that we have a output indicator, which it turns red when the output is on and turns off when the output is off. And we also have a status LED, which is blinking blue at the moment. It's just slow blinking. So it's a brand new unit, it's not paired to anything yet. So I guess this is the status that it's not connected to the internet at the moment. So let me push the pairing button, or the button for a long time. And now we get into the pairing mode, which is indicated by the quicker strobing blue light. And I can go into my eWeLink application and I start pairing. I have noticed that we have some additional options since I used this eWeLink application for the last time. So we just go to quick pairing, we provide the Wi-Fi access details, and then do next, and then wait for this device to also appear in my app. The pairing is now complete. Just ignore the fact that all my other devices, or most of my other devices, are offline just because they are not plugged in at the moment. And if I scroll down here, I can see that I have a Sonoff Basic R3, that's the name I've given to this device, and I can control it straight away from here. And because I just installed this device, as usual, we have a firmware update. So we just go to the settings and update the newest firmware, which is 3.0.0 at the moment. And now I got a notification that the firmware has been updated to version 3.0.0, and you can see that the network status LED is constant green, which means that it's connected, and I can still control the device, that's fine. If I go back to the settings, now you can see that the firmware is the latest firmware. Actually, probably by the end of this video there will be an additional more recent firmware released. And in the options, I have a few more options that appeared as the result of the new firmware. So I can specify the power on state, that's the same as what we have seen for other devices. I can disable the indicator, which is basically these LEDs here. And I also have the inching option. So I can use it as a momentary device. So if I turn it on, then it only comes on for a certain amount of time. Sorry. And it automatically goes off. So I'm going to delete this feature now. If I go back to the main screen, then we see that we have the similar functions for the Basic R3, what we have seen for the other Sonoff Basic devices. So I can share the device with other Sonoff users. We also have the schedule option where I can specify different times where I want this device to either turn on and off. And I also have timers where I can manually start some countdowns, and at the end of the countdown the device either turns on and off automatically. But again, this is something that you have to trigger manually every single time. And we also have the loop timer, which allows us to create an on-off cycle with varying parameters. So I have covered the use of the loop timer as an auto off function in my previous videos, but now we can use the inching function for that as well. So as you can see, the Sonoff R3 in the eWeLink application functions and appears exactly the same as the Sonoff R1 or the R2 running on the latest firmware. This was my review of the Sonoff Basic Release 3 model. I'm sorry if the not including the DIY function is a little bit disappointment for you, but IT was also pushing back on the release of the latest firmware, which is going to enable the DIY function. So that's going to be version 3.3.0 as I was told, and at the moment we are on 3.1.0. But this device has been with me for I guess over 2 months now already, and I'm going on holiday, so I'm not sure if I would be able to finish a full video with the DIY function even if it gets released in the next couple of days. So here you go, this is just the first review of the R3, and I'm going to have a separate video on the DIY function. Hopefully I will be able to get enough content on that which is really going to be useful for you as well. And since I have a Sonoff Mini which also supports DIY, I'm hoping that I would be able to show that function not only on the Basic R3 but on the Mini as well. That's all for today. I hope you find this episode useful. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.